So it has been recently announced that Warner Brothers is shutting down 3 of their game studios. And it is not really good. And usually I don't like to cover game news regarding layoffs like this. However, when I thought about making a video about this sort of topic, I thought I'd tie it in with what my content is all about. And that's being able to give advice, teach others, and just really give tips and how to navigate being a full-time freelancer, or if you want to go part-time as a freelancer, get into more contract type of gigs. And that's what this channel is really all about. So I thought, let's go ahead and do this and really give my own thoughts about the state of the industry, and really kind of piggybacking from one of my other videos I did about, is joining a game studio viable these days? What's up, guys? My name is Christian. I am a part-time freelance sound designer and a composer. I've worked on the indie game Labyrinthine. That is basically a asymmetrical co-op survival horror game on Steam that you can play right now. But again, when it comes to this type of video and what happened, and I will put the article of Bloomberg in the description for you guys to check it out. I'm not going to read everything in this article, but I just wanted to break it down. So Warner Brothers shuts down 3 game studios, cancels Wonder Woman, and what happened was, I guess, when they were closing these 3 game studios, which was Monolith Productions, Player First Games, and Warner Brothers Games San Diego. Now, Warner Brothers Games San Diego is a support team, and Player First Games, they worked on Harry Potter, Quidditch Champions, they worked on Multiverses, Game of Thrones Conquest, Hogwarts Legacy, Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League, and also Monolith Productions. Now, Monolith Productions, they're one of my favorite developers because they did help develop Fear, which was a great FPS psychological horror game back in the day that I played growing up. And man, it is very unfortunate for the talent and the creativity of the people behind these studios. But I wanted to talk about this because when it kind of goes back to, you know, how I talk to you guys about being a freelance sound designer, or whether that's being a composer, it really showcases the state of the industry, right? We're seeing all these different layoffs happening with all these studios. And what you're kind of seeing, and especially if you dig deep to it, when I read this stuff from Warner Brothers, now I have to disclaim, I'm a huge DC fan. I like DC more so than Marvel. I know, unpopular opinion. I know Marvel makes some great stuff, and I do like some what Marvel does. I mean, Marvel Rivals. I mean, I know that's not Marvel per se. That's a game that's developed by NetEase, which unfortunately they've had very small support teams go through layoffs also. Ugh. But I wanted to mention that because that is a good example of how you can take a very great IP and put it into the hands of a developer studio that knows, or at least has experience making games, making great games. And Warner Brothers is not the exception. And I think that, to me, when I'm seeing what's going on, again, we can speculate, but this is what I believe. I believe Warner Brothers, because they're just so indecisive with their decisions when it comes to making games, because you have to remember, they not just focus games, they focus on films. And I believe there's talks about a Flash game happening, but because the movie flopped and the whole backlash, I'm not going to dive into it, but apparently there's backlash with Ezra Miller. That's just what I've read and what I've heard from other people. So I don't know if Warner Brothers looked at that and was like, no, we're not going to take a chance with this. So they're kind of banking on Wonder Woman, which is basically using the same Nemesis mechanics the Shadow Mordor games uses, which they also patent that mechanic also. So yeah, that's the thing. Anyways, so I'm just like, man, when I'm reading this, how is this How is this viable? You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to say AAA studios aren't a viable career path to take. Let me just disclaim that. I'm not saying indie, I'm not saying being freelance is the better option, because let me tell you, in my last video I made when it comes to breaking into the game industry, I'll put the link below in the description for you to check it out. It's also hard. Indie developers go through challenges also, but what you're kind of seeing with indies and indie developers, especially the ones that pump out games, just more games per year, smaller scoped, smaller scale games per year, rather than spending 2+ years on a game, investing millions of dollars as far as a budget, especially if you're working with a publisher and you're investing 10,000. Now, granted, 10,000 is very small for an indie. Let me just put that out there. But when you're seeing like AAA studios, when they're investing, say, 20 to 50 millions of dollars as far as a budget for these games and time spent onto these titles, and then they flop, you're seeing a trend and a pattern with a lot of these studios spending so much time, so much money with no return of investment. Therefore, they have to do layoffs. It's very unfortunate. And that's why in that video, I really recommend you guys check out that video I did, because I really emphasize and focus on, or at least recommend, if you are interested in getting a job in a AAA studio, and that's the route, that's the path you want to take as a sound designer, especially if you're a junior or even you have a few years of experience, mid-senior roles. However, I just really recommend you just research the studio, and if you can find people on LinkedIn, I'll make a video. As far as the next video I want to make another video that focuses on why LinkedIn is probably the number one social media platform you should be on, especially when it comes to networking and finding opportunities. Because if you go on LinkedIn and you find people that work at that studio that you are in the market of thinking about joining or wanting to work with, talk to the people that work there. Talk to the people that work there, but they moved on to another studio, or see that they were laid off from that studio. These are very important things to look out for, and that will really give you an idea what the studio's all about as far as their layoff history, their turnover rate. These are very important statistics, or at least logistics, I would say. Not statistics, logistics to look at, because you got to make a good decision when it comes to these things. And even if you can't predict that your studio or the studio that you're going to join is going to have layoffs, because again, this industry is very unpredictable. I will say that there are many studios that I thought would never go through layoffs, and last year you saw many layoffs happen. I mean, Arcane Studios, I mean, I never thought they would go through layoffs, but anyways, that's another topic for another day. But my point is, when you're considering a job or a profession into sound design, and this is mainly for sound designers, composers, it's very rare for a studio to have an in-house composer. So your route is basically going to be freelance. But for sound designers especially, you have to really consider, man, like, do you want to take a chance being in that position where, especially if you're moving out of state and they help you move out, reimburse you even, and then within the next year or 2 years from that point, they tell you, sorry, like, wish you luck in your job search, kind of thing. I understand how these layoffs can affect people. It's not fun. Not fun. I know a lot of great people who have been let go from many jobs or many studios that they've been a part of, and I've been trying really hard to reach out to them and seeing if there's any way I can help, man, because I've been trying to send resources, and I try to connect people with other people in my network that I have very good relationships with. So if you are affected by any of these layoffs, please email me. That will be in the description. And let's connect on LinkedIn, because I want to, get to know you and see if there's any way I can help. But anyways, I know this wasn't the usual type of content I usually post on this channel. Like I said, I try to stay away from the noise. This isn't really noise, but I thought I'd make a video about this because I thought I can make it relevant for really selling the idea of AAA is not the only path to become a sound designer, and really consider freelance as an option. But again, freelance is another challenge. I'll make another video about it as far as tips on becoming a freelance sound designer and what I do, how I market myself, how I network. Also, I have a podcast, Haunted Behind Design also. I will also be having new episodes for Haunted Behind Design, especially for GDC coming up, so be on the lookout for that. But as always, guys, that's the end of this video. If you found this video informative, helpful, and somewhat in that capacity, give this video a like and subscribe to the channel. As always, guys, see you guys in the flippity flop.